So I think you've all heard the teaching about the disadvantages of self-centeredness many, many times. uh, what's interesting, though, I just want to point out some pitfalls that could happen when we do this meditation. One is when we meditate on the disadvantages of self-centeredness, is just thinking, what a bad person I am. I'm so selfish. And a friend of mine, who's a long-term Dharma student, she was telling me, this was some years ago, that she went to ask one Lama about this, like the feeling, the thought after you meditate on the disadvantages of self-centeredness that, oh, I'm really, kind of bad for being so self-centered. And he said yes. And then I was horrified when I heard this. And I think, what happens is because the Tibetan psyche is a little bit different, and they don't have this idea of shame and low self-esteem and that kind of stuff the way we do. And they're the idea of I isn't as individualistic, as we in Western culture tend to have it. And so I think that the Lama didn't understand how Westerners think, and that when we see a fault in ourselves, instead of thinking, oh, there's a fault, now I can correct it, we think, I'm hopeless, I'm a disaster, I'm totally worthless, I'm full of shame, I'm no good, and we go into that whole track. Yeah? And so we really saw last week when we were discussing fear, fear of your teacher saying something to you. And for one person, that fear means, oh no, what a lousy person I am, because I made a mistake. For another person, the fear is, oh, I made a mistake. I want to be better than that. And so that kind of fear isn't the discouraging kind. It's the thing of, oh, I made a mistake and I wish I hadn't, and now I've got to work harder to improve it. Whereas the first kind of fear was, oh, I got criticized because I'm afraid of criticism because that just means I'm a lousy person, worthless, and so on. Okay? So here it's the same kind of thing. When we meditate on the disadvantages of self-centeredness, we can come out either with the Western view of what a horrible person I am, or with the idea of, oh, wow, this is, self-centeredness is really causing me so many problems, and I don't want to have those problems, and so I want to do something about it. So are you seeing the difference here? And can you see within yourself, to the extent to which you go to one extreme and, and put yourself down and discourage yourself, and the extent to which you can go to the other side, which is a proper way of looking at it. Yeah? So this is one thing that I think we need to be very careful with in thinking about the disadvantages of self-centeredness. Okay, is one, you actually do the meditation and you go through the different disadvantages, and then you come out with that wrong conclusion. Okay, that's one pitfall. The second one is you're very familiar with the pitfalls. So then when you see that you're being self-centered, instead of going through the pitfalls again and coming out with, the conclusion that, my self-centeredness is causing me a lot of problems as well as other people, you skip over that whole analysis and you go directly to, I'm worthless, I'm bad, I'm a failure, I'm, full of shame and all that kind of stuff. So you don't even go through the meditation anymore. You go right to the conclusion. And I think this happens because when we were kids, when we were selfish, we were told we were bad. Weren't we? You know? I mean, if you have brothers and sisters and you're not sharing your toys, yeah, or you're hitting them, or you're fighting with them, or you're doing something your parents don't like, or whatever it is, or you're not getting good grades, you're bad. Yeah? So we sometimes don't even do the analysis, we just go to the conclusion. Yeah? And then there comes, of course, some real resistance to that method of generating bodhicitta, because who likes to just constantly go to the conclusion that, I'm a horrible person, okay? Yeah? And so then we get very stuck in, oh, I'm so selfish, I'm so horrible, I'm a failure at being a bodhisattva, I will never become a bodhisattva because look at me, And then we just kind of say, well, it's all just kind of useless. I guess I'll give up trying to generate bodhicitta and I'll just, do lots of devotional things and create merit by making offerings and forget the rest of it. Yeah? So that's very dangerous, don't you think? Yeah, I mean, it's good to purify and create merit. I'm not putting that down, and we definitely need to do that. But we shouldn't give up on ourselves. Yeah, and that whole thing of putting ourselves down, then that begins to really adversely affect the whole rest of our practice. Yeah, and I noticed, it was very interesting, I noticed with some of the syllogisms we were making last Thursday, they were syllogisms to prove why we were incompetent. Yeah? If you remember some of them, they were syllogisms to explain why we are incompetent. I didn't hear any syllogisms, we need to create the syllogisms to prove to ourselves why we are competent and why it is possible to overcome these things. Yeah? Okay, so you can see these habitual states of mind. And they're so habitual, we're so used to going down the same path that we don't even realize that there's another path right there. You're standing here and there's two paths, and you don't even see one of them because you're so used to going down that one that takes you, down into the jungle and with the scorpions and everything else. That's the one you've always taken. You don't even see it as a possible other one to take. Okay? So this is where we have to open our eyes, and really see that the self-centeredness, we are not bad because we're self-centered. The self-centeredness is our enemy. It's the thing afflicting us. We are not union oneness with self-centeredness. Yeah? It is not us, we are not it. And we have to be very, very clear about that and to really see that this is something that's inhibiting me from doing what I want to do and actualizing my deepest, heartfelt spiritual goals. Yeah. So if something's in my way of doing what I want, I should get rid of it, because that's what we do when it comes to the 8 worldly concerns, isn't it? Somebody's interfering with me doing what I want, and I, get them out of there really fast. So this is the same thing we should do with the self-centered thought, because it's interfering with our happiness, and we should realize that we're getting rid of the self-centered thought, of course, because it's interfering with our happiness and it's interfering with other people's happiness, and that the two things come to the same point. So it's not a thing of if I'm happy, others got, I've got to make others unhappy to be what I'm happy. And if they're happy, it means I've got to suffer. Get rid of that whole thing. But because happy, when we can do something useful that benefits others, then we feel happy, don't we? Yeah. We feel happy because we feel like we're doing something meaningful, and we feel happy because it's nice to see other people happy, isn't it? And it's nice to know that we've been able to contribute to that happiness even a little bit. So the happiness of others and our own happiness go hand in hand. Yeah. Don't think that if others are happy, it's because I've sacrificed myself. Yeah? No. We're sacrificing our self-centered mind, which is our own enemy. Yeah? That's what we're giving a good kick in the tush to. Not ourselves, to the self-centeredness. So it's very important to really differentiate the conventional I and the self-centeredness. They're very different. Yeah. And don't go into this thing that, that we got since we were 2 or 3 years old of, you're a bad boy, you're a bad girl, don't be so selfish. Yeah. Because that's not true. Okay. So that's about self-centered thought. I think you know the different ways you can go through, and that it's the source of all of our negative karma, all of our unethical things that we have to spend time purifying were created under the influence of self-centeredness, how it blocks, attaining bodhicitta, it blocks generating compassion, we inflict harm on others, you can go on, and especially, looking at our own lives and just seeing sometimes how when we've just pushed our self-centered attitude, how it's resulted in so much unhappiness and so much misery for ourselves and for others, and you just look at it, and instead of going, I'm bad, you go, boy, that self-centeredness really confused me. Yeah. It pretended to be my friend, but it's actually my enemy. Yeah, it's the one that's the big deceiver. Yeah, because self-centeredness makes up all this phony baloney. Self-centeredness is full of fake news. Yeah, it says, ranging from, if you eat quickly and get back and have more seconds before anybody else eats them, you'll be happy. It ranges from there to, I'm jealous of so-and-so, and if I can trip them up and humiliate them, then I'll be happy. And to everything else. Yeah. And so it just see the enemy for what it is, and get rid of the self-blame. So this is something like when we do the requests in our various prayers, our various sadhanas and so on, we should really request inspiration to see self-centeredness as our enemy, and to free ourselves from all these old emotional and thought problems. Yeah, so that we can really tap into our potential and use it wisely.
I was just thinking that it would be very easy to kind of fall into discouragement or thinking that we're bad as well in the meditation that you explained on Monday about where you criticize yourself, you exchange yourself, and then you get jealous of yourself, and you could easily come out of that just feeling like, oh.
Right. That's why seeing the disadvantages of self-centeredness and the benefits of cherishing others come before you do that. Okay? Yeah. But it does help wake us up. But it comes down to that whole thing of when we see our faults, we should really be happy. Instead of when I see my faults, oh, it means I'm hopeless. Yeah, because we're always saying, I want to be a better person. I want to be a bodhisattva. Yeah. So when we see what's interfering to that, then, it's like if you're doing a business and you're losing money, when somebody finally points out to you who's been taking the money out of your cash box, you're happy, aren't you? You know who the thief is right now, and you fire the guy. Yeah, so it's the same way when we see, how self-centeredness is interfering with our happiness. Yeah. Oh, you're the one who's been taking all the cash out of my merit box. Yeah. Yeah, you're the one. Get out of here. To quote our prez, you're fired.